Hello and welcome to another Saturday edition of Traveling Young. I don't know if this is going to be a trend.
Maybe.
It
might be. It's been a long week. So
Yes, we'll talk about that later. But what we will say, don't skip. I got to tell you this. Tomorrow night we're recording the Easter Brew episode, beer drinking episode.
Very exciting.
And we've got two special guests. I'm not going to tell you who they are. Of course, Peter, a.k.a. Jean-Luc Picard, will be here. But we've also got two very special guests. It's going to be so much fun.
Excited.
You've got to watch this. I'm hoping I'll have it up on Tuesday of next week. We're recording it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Our annual Puskabrew episode is going to be very good. But tonight, we thought we'd talk about marriage.
Marriage.
I thought... So today's a very special day, so this is a bit personal. Not you and me having a special marriage day, but my parents, today, on the day we're recording this, April 8th,
Yes.
2022, are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary.
Tuluga.
And you've met them both,
Yes.
eating, Lakrids and Smobro, and my dad drinking beer with me. And so we thought we'd talk a little about marriage, because there's some interesting things. That little small minor differences, maybe, between here and back home in the U.S. We've also not prepared for any of the things we're about to talk about, and we don't even have notes in front of us, so this is going to be completely raw as we just spend today talking about marriage. The reason why marriage is important, besides it being important to just society in general, but in my life, is I've been so fortunate, besides my parents, who are celebrating their 50th anniversary, which is something that not very many people get to do. Yeah. My grandparents, they were married for 81 years. I mean, that's like down to like a handful of people on the planet.
And they were, like, you could tell how much they loved each other. Like, Modi would still, say things, I think, to Evan, and they get her riled up, but you could tell that, they just really loved each other. He'd hold her hand and stuff, and... Yeah, I mean,
he'd say things to embarrass her, and she'd be like, oh, Modi, stop it. And
it was so funny to watch her face just go totally red.
Yeah, they lived to be 101, and... they lived together in their house up until, and he passed away before her, and then she moved in with my aunt for the last part because she couldn't be by herself. But I mean, so it's an inspiration, and we're fortunate to see these, in my life to get to. I'm now, so yesterday was my birthday. I'm now 46.
Happy birthday, Melfish's Day.
and they passed away in 2018, 4 years ago. So. Well into my 40s, a little bit into my 40s, I got to see and kind of observe what...
Oh, Maya did too. I think that was so amazing for Maya to be able to have them for so long. Yeah.
And part of that is interesting because I think one of my personal feelings about things like marriage and parenting even is, while you have people that you can look at as like role models, also every marriage isn't the same. And so we're not going to replicate exactly what my grandparents had, because everything's different, life circumstances and where they lived and everything. Same with my parents. So it's good to have like role models, but also be able to try to identify what it needs to be like for you.
Yeah, and I think that can sometimes be hard though, because I think there's lots of societal expectations of what a marriage is like, and I think we got married quite young. We've been together now we've been married for 22 years. It will be 22 years this year, but we've been together for 24. But I remember early on, we just had our own way of doing things, and that didn't really jive with what a lot of my friends thought a marriage should look like. And
yeah, I mean, I think we started thinking like, it's nuclear family, which I've already forgotten, but we learned what that was in Danish.
I don't know.
In Danish as well, the other day in Danish class. Like, you have, 2 kids or 3 kids, and and you get a house, blah, blah, blah. And we started with that stuff, really, with and Maya, and had a house. But then I just realized that, like, creating, what society says a marriage should be is actually, I think, a recipe for disappointment.
Yeah.
because it ends up ignoring you as an individual
Yeah.
and what you need for
Exactly.
yourself and what she needs, and it's not going to be the same for everybody. And I mean, I remember tons of times, I don't know if I told you this, but I traveled a ton. Well, they don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I traveled a ton, and for a while I was like going from Chicago to New York every single week.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I go to Paris because I worked for this international companies. I went to Sydney. I mean, a bunch of different places for work. And I remember my dad and people would be like, is everything okay? Why, is that okay? And that's just, maybe you should be home. And it's like, well, I appreciate, of course. I mean, and maybe for your relationship and your marriage, it wouldn't have
be
worked.
right.
But, we talked about it and we agreed.
It
and
worked for
and we knew
us.
that it would,
Yeah.
well, not, we didn't know, but we hoped
Yeah.
that time would lead to a situation like now where we
Yeah.
could live in Denmark. And that came with, that for us was the sacrifice.
But it was
That
a
isn't
joint
right for everybody.
Yeah, and
I mean, there's a lot of couples would not want to do that.
But it was a joint sacrifice. Like, that was something we knew going into that job, that's what it was going to be, and we both decided that was okay.
And I spent 10 years never traveling anywhere.
Yeah.
So
But I think,
it was good to have a change
Yeah.
of pace for us, I think,
but I
too.
think outside looking in, a lot of people are like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, how do you guys handle that? And I think back to friends of mine who were, like, they would want their husbands or their boyfriends to be all, fawning all over them and giving them flowers and taking them out to dinners. And thankfully Josh knows I hate those things. So he knows to buy me, one year you bought me a Germany track jacket, a Germany national team track jacket for our anniversary. And I thought that was like the best thing ever. It was so cool. And I showed it off to my friends and they were all horrified.
Yeah.
they thought that was like a horrible gift.
By the way, I'm looking down at Brisket
Yeah.
because he's constantly just right here.
He is.
And if I were to reach down to try to pick him up, he would then move away. He wouldn't come up. So real fast, one of the differences, and I would love for somebody to explain to me why. Almost every Dane I know has their wedding ring on their other hand,
Yeah, I never noticed this.
not on this hand.
Yeah.
And I would be curious if somebody can tell me why that's the case, because we always have it on our left hand.
Yeah.
I know people have had to have it cut off for some reasons and
geez.
so I take mine off every night when I go
Yeah.
to bed because I'm always like nervous
That it'll
that
get
something will
stuck.
happen. It'll get just stuck forever. I think my dad's might be stuck.
Oh.
I feel like it's possible that it's stuck. One of the differences is I find a lot of Danes maybe don't even get married
Yeah, this
and
is,
live together and have kids,
Yeah.
but never actually get married, and that is not super common.
Or they get married like way late. Yeah, Maya has a friend who she was super confused because her friend was the flower girl in her parents' wedding. And so Maya assumed that it was a second marriage. And then her friend was like, no, they're both my parents, that they just got married really late. And she was like, it like blew her mind that
that's
happened.
not common. People
No.
I mean, it's usually if people have kids and they're not married, they're living apart and they're not
Yeah.
necessarily a couple.
No.
But that was new to us.
Yeah.
I think in the U.S., I don't know. I Google it and find out, but I think a lot of it has to do with rights and stuff because
Yeah, the legality of it, yeah.
if you're a couple, for example, and not legally married, and the other one is sick,
It's
and
a
you have to
lot
make
of
like health
problems.
decisions, they might not have the right to do that because they're not actually married to them
Yeah.
or a family member. So that can cause issues. So, and also there's some tax things where here taxes are a little weird where. I guess the government knows we're spouses, but you file individually, whereas in the U.S.
Yeah.
you file taxes as a couple.
Well, it's not weird for here. It's weird for us. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it
very
was
different
strange
for
when I got
us.
here where
Yeah.
we're treated as individuals. Like bank accounts, you have like joint everything in the U.S. when
Yeah.
you're married, where here everything is individual.
own name.
And like I can have access to her account, but I can't make decisions about
No.
it, and she can to mine, and I've granted her the ability to see it, but you also have to, and this is a note, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know this, if you don't know this, I learned this, and somebody whom I know
I think I
that's
know what you're
Danish
gonna
didn't
say.
even know this.
Yeah,
So
this is bad.
people might learn this.
Yeah.
Even Danes.
Yeah.
If you're married, make sure both of you have your own bank accounts.
Very important.
Make sure, because if one of them, like if we just, and initially when we moved here, we had one bank account that was in my name and she had access to it, but there was no bank account in her name. If I had died, she would have been froze out of all of that money for it takes like 2 months or so for the government
Freeze your assets.
to basically decide that she legally has a right to all that money. You don't just get it automatically.
No.
So if you're married, make sure both of you have bank accounts. Even if you're not building a bunch of wealth in one, have enough money in there so if something happens, you're good for a couple months. Because if not, you may be in serious trouble. Somebody we know didn't do that, and they actually had to borrow money from somebody in this time because they couldn't access all their money.
Yeah.
Because a whole bunch of it was in the wife's name who passed away. So that's a little...
Pro tip!
and I mean, it's even better now with the negative interest, where that also gives you the chance to spread your money across two people to help avoid negative interest, which is happening if you have a certain amount of money in your bank account. So there's a tip for anybody that doesn't know. And I didn't know for the first few years, and then I was on the phone with the bank 2 or 3 years later. We were setting something up for you, and they told me, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. So
nobody told me. If something
actually
happened, you would have been here not knowing what was going to happen to your visa, not having any access to any of your money, our money.
Yeah. I forgot. It was the bank that initially told us that, and then...
Well, not initially. They told us because we were asking them about something.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to avoid the negative interest when it started happening, and I was trying to find out ways. And then they said, well, you could do this. By the way, you should just do this anyway. And I'm like, I would have loved to have known that 3 years ago. So that's something to know. Real fast, not related to this. Quick little update. Another thing we're thinking about doing is if we do these once a week, part of the reason why is there's a lot of stuff going on in our lives. So we thought I thought maybe we could say a few things about this week, just so you know. For those that are regular viewers and want to know what's happening with us.
Yeah.
So my birthday was yesterday. That was pretty big.
Yep.
I was in Paris all week for work.
Yeah, you were.
That was pretty big. That was my first work trip for 2 years. That's one reason why this video is happening now, because I'm now back home. And the other big thing being my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. I've already said huge things in my life this week.
Yeah.
Anything big you want to mention?
I don't know. I was so busy. I got to do.
You didn't put the trash out to the curb.
I did not put the trash out to the curb because I had multiple days where I had a half-hour slot within an 8-hour day where I was free, and the trash just did not go out this week. So that's what it's been like.
And the weather was ridiculous.
Yeah, the weather. Like today, I kid you not, it was bright blue skies. I was working upstairs and I looked out the window because I started hearing this like clinking on the window, and I looked out, bright blue skies and hailing at the same time.
In the city, I was in the city at work, and some guy was running. My office is right on the harbor. It was hailing. It was windy. You could see it was like hailing so much and windy.
You could see it coming.
You could see like the sheets of hail in the wind, and some dude was running, and I sent a short video to a friend saying this guy is committed. 30 minutes later, it was gorgeous, and I sent another picture saying, can you believe this is just 30 minutes after that first thing? I was worried at 2, like, am I going to have to walk through this to get to the train to get home? But no.
All week I've been telling people, because everybody's been complaining about how the weather was so nice and then it got cold again, and I keep telling everybody about how in Chicago we have this thing called second winter. And so, like, you get winter and then you get, like, a couple weeks of really nice weather to fool you into thinking it's going to be nice, and then it turns winter again.
Yeah.
So
that's April, early April.
Yeah,
in,
that was...
in Denmark. All right. Well, anyway, that's a couple things about life. So I don't know. We just thought I really was thinking today because we had a different idea for a video today.
Yeah.
But then I don't know. I was thinking about my parents, and I spoke to them yesterday because it was my birthday. And it's, it's a big deal. 50 years is amazing. So I know they watch these videos, so I wanted to mention it. And then when I thought about mentioning it, I'm like, well, geez, I got my grandparents, 81 years.
Yeah.
There's a little subtle, I'm sure a ton of other differences about being married in Denmark that we just aren't even aware of.
Yeah.
But some little things that we thought would be worth capturing, and then it gives a little bit of look into our lives as people who will soon be married next month. For 22 years. Yeah.
We've been together longer than we've not been together.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Well, we met in
I was 20.
1998.
Yeah.
So
I had just turned 20.
Not quite 24 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's probably since I'm 46.
Yeah.
And it was the fall.
Yeah.
So it was probably 23 and a half years ago. Or no, 20. No, so I guess it is.
Yeah.
No, so then it's definitely half my life.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because it feels like 10 lifetimes.
In a good way.
Boy.
We've had like 5 lives. It's amazing.
By the way, it did not start well today. The Nationals opening day was yesterday. They lost.
Oh.
And I failed my first Wordle out of like 91 in a row. So 46 hasn't begun so great on my first full day at 46, but hopefully things will pick up this weekend.
But I did get you a very nice cutting board.
You did, cutting
for your
board.
birthday.
Yeah. But it'll pick up this weekend because Puskabrew.
Yeah.
And then also a future video, which we're going to go Sunday and see some happy cows jumping around.
Very nice.
So
I'm
that's
very
going to be a
excited
future
about that,
video.
yeah.
We got Maya going to see some cows on Free the Cow Day. So some cool things happening.
The cow day.
Free Cow Day, whatever. I think it's called Happy Cow Day or something like that.
Probably.
So that's planned for Sunday. So we got some cool things that you'll get to see over the next week or so. And and Easter break. So, all right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this. A little peek into our lives.
Peek into our lives. Our thoughts on marriage. I feel like we've been married long enough where we can have thoughts
I think
on marriage.
my most important point, I think, that's helped us is making sure we don't try to make our marriage like everybody else's.
No.
You got to make it your own.
Live your own life. Yep.
Everything's that way. Also, parenting is the same way. Don't try to parent like everybody else.
No.
All right, that's it. We hope you have a good Saturday.
Whatever.
Because today's Saturday for you.
This, yeah.
And stay tuned in a couple days because we're going to have the Puskabrew episode.
Yes.
I cannot wait till tomorrow. 2 special guests. It's going to be super cool. Until then, we're going to say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.